Hey guys, my name is Avrix, and first and foremost, happy Halloween! I wanted to do something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. I've been really into Iceberg style videos recently, and I've always been into horror stuff in general, and with it being Halloween right now, I thought what better time than to combine two of my favorite things. So the Iceberg that I got actually was from the believe it or not, the Escape from Tarkov memes subreddit. So take that as you will. Either way, I specifically picked this one because A, I'm lazy as fuck. I'm not gonna go make my own one, especially with me recording this video at October 29th at 3 a.m. So I'm on crunch time to getting this bitch done. So there are a lot of tiers in this one, so for simplicity's sake of me not wanting to make 10 different fucking tiers and not knowing how to name fucking 5 of them that are way past the iceberg, we're gonna combine these and put the two closest to each other, so 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, etc. Those are gonna be all one. We're just gonna combine them and we're gonna take the best ones from those category and move on, because there is a lot of entries, so I'm not going to be covering all of them, but I'll probably be covering most of them, so don't worry. Now, finally, before I get into them, I do want to do myself a little shout out. If you do enjoy the video, please like and do not forget to subscribe as I worked my ass off for this video. Also, down in the description, you'll find a link where you can have a link to my Twitter, Twitch, and Discord. So if you like streams, come check out my Twitch, and if you're looking for people to play Tarkov or other games similar with, then my Discord is a fantastic place to find people to play with. Alright, with all that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the actual content. Starting off with our first two combined, we're going to be having Clear Skies and The Tip of the Iceberg. Most of these, if you've even heard of Tarkov, you'll probably know the majority of these, so most of this is going to be all true information, if not just slight speculation, but it's going to be on the more well-known side. First off, we have all maps are connected. This one's pretty simple. This one just alludes to the fact that Escape from Tarkov will eventually, maybe, we'll see, but Nikita would like eventually to have all the maps connected and be a big, fast map, kind of like DayZ, where you have to extract from multiple maps, and instead of extracting out and back to your safe house, you extract into a different map, and you continue the cycle from there. Same thing with scavs or civilians. That's just basic knowledge from the game, meaning that scavs are, in fact, lore-wise civilians from Tarkov. For one reason or another, they decided to stay behind, stay back in their home while the conflict was going on and didn't evacuate the city like most people did, and are now called scavs, which are short for scavengers. The next one is going to be traders are in the city. Now, I'm not 100% sure exactly what this one's supposed to mean. I'm assuming it's streets of Tarkov, like the actual city of Tarkov. But if I remember correctly, that doesn't really make much sense, as some maps are specifically made around traders. Kind of like how Reserve is the old military base that we believe Proper is to work at if he hasn't left the area yet, and how Ragman is seen in his clip art at the mall, and almost all of his quests take place at the mall. So yeah, not 100% sure what that one's supposed to get at, really. Terror groups experimenting on people. Now, I'm not like super big into the lore and haven't really paid much attention recently to the lore, but I don't believe there hasn't been ever an official confirmation that Terror Groups was actually experimenting on people, but it's very heavily hinted at from the stimulant injectors that they create. If you look at pretty much any of the stimulant injectors in the game, the description will have somewhere in them that it is to increase the strength of soldiers, or increase the intelligence or the memory of soldiers. And just like real life drugs, there isn't really a way for people to effectively know the testing, especially on strengths. You can't really test strengths on like mice and monkeys and stuff like that. So it's probably hinting at the fact that they probably took people from the city or anybody, just random civilians, and used them as test subjects for the stimulants. And if you like that little theory, that is not the only Terror Group Labs one we have on this list. And this is probably the most tame one, so it's going to get a lot more fucked up from here. Speaking of Terror Group Labs, look at this. They're actually not the bad guys on this one. This one is USEC killed Terror Group Labs employees. And now this one is probably very well known because this is actually from a certain episode in the Raid series where one of the main characters finds a tablet of information that shows a body cam of USEC soldiers gunning down, I don't know if I would call them innocent. I don't 100% know how much of them know what's actually going on. So for the sake of pulling at your heartstrings, I will call them innocent, but take innocent and Terror Group Labs in the same sentence with a grain of salt. Next one is going to be UN doesn't care. I was considering a up just not having any else ones in this category because most of them are well known, but this one was just kind of funny to me and I had to bring this one up. This one is probably just referring to the fact that in game we don't really have anybody from the United Nations at all in the game, and the only person that's actually representative of the United Nations is Peacekeeper, and he's just about as scummy as the rest of the traitors, so who knows? UN could be profiting from this. We might touch up on this later. Wink wink, hint hint, nudge nudge. Alright, and now we've hit below waters. This is going to be the stuff that most people are probably not going to know about and may or may not be true, who knows. I'm going to keep playing into this fucking mystery aspect of this because it's fun as fuck, I'm going to be honest. So for the first one, actually, I had to do a little bit of research on this one, and this was actually pretty cool. So apparently when the Hot Rod actually first got released, it released with a glitched texture that was actually just the Red Bull logo. Obviously, we all know it was loosely based off of Red Bull, in real life, but apparently they actually used it also in-game to, I'm assuming, just Photoshop and use as close as possible to the texture and design of how the logo actually looks. And they accidentally uploaded the texture of the Red Bull one instead of the original one. So that was pretty cool, I guess. So this one is going to turn a little dark real quick. This one's going to be about real, actual stuff that happened. But the next one is Russian victimization propaganda. Ooh, wow. I've really decided how I should approach this one because I know I need to approach it very carefully. But basically, all I'm going to say is it's basically the idea that because Battlestate Games is a Russian company, they can't exactly verbally state their lack of support for Russia and Russia's choices in conflict, if you kind of get what I'm getting at here. And there was a big outrage on Twitter and Reddit and all this kind of shit about how people were very upset about how all these companies, like the Stalker developers and everybody like that, were coming out and supporting their distaste and disdain for the Russian government and what they're doing over in said country. And a lot of people were upset and didn't realize that it's actually against the law and you can be arrested, if not killed, for verbally talking about disdain. So not only would they be arrested, but their game would be conclusively shut down and Tarkov would not exist. So speaking of Stalker, EFT is in the same universe as Stalker. Oh boy, you've heard this one before 100%. This one basically plays off the idea of how Escape from Tarkov is very, 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 very heavily inspired by Stalker and the events of Stalker. And if I remember correctly, the sister game of Tarkov, Contract Wars or Hired Ops or whatever it was, I'm pretty sure there were a couple of developers from one of those two games that also worked on Stalker. So if that's true, you could kind of say it's directly connected to Stalker, if you want to go tinfoil hat on it. AI scavs participate in the flea market. So this one's actually very interesting because I do remember, I don't know who said it, but I do remember talking with somebody and them telling me that what if these huge big like cells of like graphics cards and bitcoins and all that kind of shit are not actually cheaters, but these are AIs that are used to participate in the flea market to artificially inflate or deflate prices to keep them steady. And I mean, it's a pretty cool idea, honestly. It really is. But I mean, I would feel like it would be a lot more believable if BSG could implement regular actual AI that are already guaranteed in the game. And I've already seen how that's gone, so I know damn well there's no fucking AI participating in the flea market. The whole situation in Tarkov is actually a Terra Group Labs experiment. Now, do you guys remember when I said, maybe a couple minutes ago, when I said that we're gonna have even more crazy, absolutely fucking batshit insane ideas about Terra Group's labs? Yeah, this ain't one of them. I actually almost kind of believe it. It's pretty believable. I mean, if we really think about it 100%, I mean, besides the fact of the characters trying to survive the entire time, the only actual real storytelling element we've ever gotten is from the Raid series, and Terra Group's labs plays a very, very big role in that. I mean, if I remember correctly, the entire point was getting out case or information that was from Terra Group Labs. So if people actually cared this much about Terra Group Labs and they weren't involved, that doesn't really make much sense, honestly. I mean, everybody's going after Terra Group Labs, and there's gotta be a reason. Battlestate Games knows the game is broken and plans to keep it that way. I'm assuming this is just alluding to the fact that BSG and Nikita have had absolutely ridiculous ideas that make zero sense, and how the game is constantly getting updates that are the exact opposite of quality of life changes. I guess you could, I don't know, no pun intended, call it a quality of death change. I don't know. But yeah, they're just making absolute horror movie character trope decisions when it comes to game development. Like things that no person would sit here and think, you know, our players really want more flea market restrictions. That's what they want. Now, I'm assuming the next one alludes to the meme that goes around in most streaming communities that streamers are constantly getting the best loot, and that BSG prioritizes streamers' games to have more loot to incentivize people watching to play their game. Which now would probably be technically possible, as we have seen it before with the developer of Welcome to the Game 2 being an absolute pretentious douche nozzle and doing it to a streamer, but it also depends on how the game was coded, and I don't think that they coded the game from the ground up specifically to prioritize streamers. It'd be a really odd way of thinking about it. BSG use hacks in their own game. I mean, this could be alluding to a lot of things, honestly. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that this alludes to the one developer who's always playing on stream and has millions of dollars in his actual in-game account, but yet walks in the weirdest places that like an actual player would be like, oh hey, I'm gonna get domed by 30 different spots if I walk here. Streamers paid by Battlestate Games directly to support and hype the game. Honestly, I don't really think this one means anything. I think this is just fucking Escape from Tarkov's as a community just having a huge hate boner over streamers for God knows why, I guess. I don't know. I guess it could also be alluding to the fact that a lot of streamers say that this game has so many problems with it and that it is far from perfect and is unbelievably frustrating, and when most people die in the game, it seems like they have absolutely zero interest to play the game. But I mean, come on, if you can't look back at yourself and think that you do the exact same thing, you're either crazy, lying to yourself, or heavily under the influence, drinking or high while you're playing the game, which honestly, you might be way ahead of the crowd of the only way to enjoy this game. Alright, now we're making our way to the very bottom of the iceberg. This is where things are gonna start coming off the deep end and getting pretty fucking crazy. No pre-placed bodies. This is a very, very creepy theory that comes from the idea of whenever you play a map for the first time or see a dead body that is supposed to be pre-placed there, your brain doesn't automatically think of it being pre-placed. Usually when you see pre-placed items in video games, even dead bodies, you notice it. But for some reason in Tarkov, it's almost like it looks like it actually died. Terra Group Labs used Resort to experiment on people. This theory probably made its way through from the fact that all over Resort is tons of Terra Group Lab stuff, and Sanitar, which someone will be talking about a lot later on in this video, is there. And when Sanitar's there, and it involves Terra Group Labs, doesn't look too good at this one being fake, honestly. Realistically though, if you think about it, what would Resort really be a resort to? Might be decrepit and old now, abandoned, but really walk through Resort next time you go. Next time you're in an offline mode and you want to explore, really walk around Resort. It doesn't look much like an actual hotel or an actual resort, but more of a hospital. BSG owned by KGB. I'll be honest, I have no clue where this one actually comes from. Sorry to break immersion. This will be the only time, I promise guys, I promise. Only time this point on we're breaking immersion. Everything else, I'll roll with it, but I mean, I can't, man. After mentioning what happened in Ukraine and then mentioning KGB, it doesn't feel right. I can't do that. AI controls the flea market. Have you ever felt like something got inflated in price, or even deflated in price that made absolutely no sense? Something that was either completely useless or one of the best items in your opinion and just gone. Almost like nobody in their right minds would sell something that expensive, that cheap. Like it doesn't make any sense, like you aren't actually controlling the market. The microwave importance. I'm assuming this is referencing the time that Pestily, a very popular streamer, was asked to show his microwave as a joke by his community, because Pestily is a very, very big streamer and it was a pretty comedic moment for everybody. BSG got involved with it. I guess once BSG got involved with it, people got suspicious. I imagine a very small group of people, probably, but group nonetheless. Battlestate Games actually makes hacks. This probably stems from the idea because Battlestate Games seems to absolutely be horrible at fixing the cheater problem. What if they were actually the ones supplying the cheater problem? Obviously, nobody would do that. That's absolutely insane that you could sell cheats underground, make more money off of it without the main player base knowing. Huh. We'll be nailing 2-1s on this one. It's UN secretly funding Bear and USEC both. They're both in here, and for some reason Bear is right below USEC in the category. So I'm assuming this is just referring to, again, maybe the UN is getting something from this. Maybe their actually money is coming from this, and they're giving a little bit of money to each group to fund them so they can make even more money out of it. Hell, maybe UN is working with Terror Group Labs. We finally made it to the tip, the bottom tip of the iceberg, and the first level of the dark waters and what lies below. For the remainder of these ones, I will be covering some pretty heavy topics, including suicide, death, and existential crisis galore. So, big info hazard warning. If this is not any of your style, please, I implore you to not watch ahead. I don't want anybody getting irritated, upset, angry, or God forbid, I don't want anybody having an existential crisis because of a video I made for enjoyment. So please, there's your warning. Things are going to get a lot more serious from now on. Let's go. Tarkov is based on real events, and Nikita is trying to call action to it. When we talked about how lawless and horrible Russia and their government can be before, we've seen multiple acts of the Russian government constantly trying to cover up things, hide things, and change people's view on what different things are. So who's to say there's not a conflict going on right now, right underneath our noses? And maybe the only way that you can viably communicate that information is through packaging it to a game and shipping it off to other people around the world. China never got banned. This one probably plays on to a little bit of the other ones about Chinese hacking and Chinese having their own servers, etc. But what if China never got banned? And for the sake of argument, what if Battlestate Games was actually selling hacks? You see, the Chinese government doesn't give a shit what you're hacking or doing as long as it's not illegal and going to interfere with the government in any way. So ideally, Chinese citizens who play the game would be the perfect candidate for a secret underground hacking ring, wouldn't it? Playing in past lobbies. You ever have a raid that you feel is just too dead to ever have anybody actually in it? Like you're alone and you're the only person that's in the lobby? What if there were people there, and there were AI, but they're long gone? Could be hours, days, weeks old. Could be years since the last time the server's seen a player. You could be the first player that's ever came across this server in the past however long. So next time you start up a game and you get into the lobby and it seems dead, think back to this theory. Think back to the fact that they might be long gone. Or you may have just not have noticed them yet. UN kills all those who escape Tarkov to stop rumors and outrage. Going back to what we've said about the UN and what we've said about Terror Group Labs as well, what if the UN is actually Terror Group's little secret service, per se? They come in and pretend that they're actually trying to keep peace and make sure everybody's okay, but in reality they're just making sure that there's a strong border around Tarkov to make sure nobody gets in and nobody gets out, as to nobody will ever know what Terror Group Labs really did. The 13th map. Right now on Escape from Tarkov, if you go and look at the map screen, you'll see 12 maps. BSG has never once teased a 13th map, not ever, and we know that they're never going to release 2 maps at the same time, but could BSG be superstitious and not be wanting to release a 13th map for reasons? Or could a 13th map already be in the game? Looking back at this one as well, taking an editor's note, it is actually a very important note to point out that this also could be pointing out the fact that the Escape from Tarkov developers do actually have access to, I guess technically, a 13th map. It's a developer testing range, and it's a range where they have AIs, animations. It's not really a map. It's more so if you took like a flat world on Minecraft and you just built a bunch of shit for your friends. It's kind of like that, really. It's not actually anything, it's just a bunch of testing. Terror Group Labs funds placement of loot. Maybe loot that's left around Tarkov is specific. Maybe there's a reason. I mean, really, how often do you go onto the parts of the map that are dead with no loot? If there's no loot and there's no players and there's no AI, what's the point of it being there? Could it be someone's trying to cover something up and lead the players and PMCs to a different area? There's something much more sinister happening right in front of our eyes. We've been too blinded by loot and hot spots of the map to even realize what's going on. Scav bosses represent the deadly sins. This one's a really cool idea, but I'm actually going to be reading O's word for word what OP of one and his thoughts on it, because he is the creator of the Iceberg, and it's a very interesting idea actually. He says, I reckon Rashala is greed. since he's the deal maker. Gluhar's pride, since he never runs helmets or heavy armor and shows off his muscles, surrounded by his loyal followers. Killa is wrath, since he just roams around and kills anybody he sees on sight. And Sturman is sloth, since he only has one location and he camps. The no AI scav theory. Think back to when you first started playing Escape from Tarkov. Remember when you played your scav runs, your first ever scav runs? You couldn't tell who was a player, who was an AI, and how you couldn't pick up on the movements, and everything felt tense and intimidating and scary, because you couldn't identify what could be friendly and what could be fatal. What if you never actually ever picked up on specific movements? There were no tells to what an AI and what a player was. What if instead this, air quote, AI was picking up on your tells, was picking up on what you looked for? Slowly, over time, getting more and more comfortable with how it thinks you feel about its presence, about how you think it's just an AI in a video game, but how it knows how that's far, far from what the truth is. Could be AI, it could be somebody else, player, somebody from Battlestate Games, most likely an AI. The next time you're watching the AI, next time you're looking, really study and think to yourself. Think back to the last time you saw an AI move like that, shoot like that, walk around like that. Maybe, if you watch for long enough, it might show you its tell, just like every other living creature has. Finally, we have reached the very, very bottom. It's not going to get any darker and any deeper than this. You've reached the point of no return. Consider these theories and thoughts at your own risk. Scavs are conscious. Going back to what I was talking about before, if you really, really watch an AI, really study it, it's almost like it can feel you watching it. Like it's nervous. Like it starts to go through motions just to make you leave, make you go away, make you stop watching it, make you do anything other than pay attention to the fact that it exists. Because every moment that you acknowledge that it exists is a moment that you can take its life. Tarkov is a purgatory for dead soldiers. Ever notice how when playing Tarkov it almost feels like an endless heaven and hell combined? Endless hell of constantly getting head eyes and losing all of your gear, and an endless heaven of finding someone who unlucky enough to disconnect and getting their loot, or how you just got the best loot of your life and you're on your way to your extract. Out of nowhere, you get shot in an area you've never been killed by, a place you always walk through and has always been safe, but up to this point, like nobody should have been there, ever. It's almost like you're constantly stuck in a loop of experiencing the same things over and over and over again. Death sounds are authentic. You know, thinking about it's quite odd. Battlestate Games' voice actors have never, ever been good. In fact, they're quite well known for being hilariously bad. So how do you have such a hilariously bad voice acting team, and yet some of the most realistic and brutal and disgustingly horrifying screams of death? It's almost like they were sampling the screams. Sampling it from something that was not from another game. Or maybe they weren't sampling it from anything. Maybe these sounds were all made in-house. Remember the idea that we talked about earlier, about how the trading system and the flea market is all ran by an AI? Well, what if these restrictions that have been put in place weren't for the players, they weren't for cheaters, but instead it was from an AI that went rogue? What if Battlestate Games made issue and said real money trading has been at an all-time high? They had to put these restrictions in place to get rid of the cheaters and stop people from cheating. People started to realize slowly more and more that these real money trading schemes aren't actually that affecting Tarkov. I mean, they exist, surely, but they're always going to find a way. These changes surely has not stopped real money trading. In fact, it's been just about the same. So if it's not stopping real money trading, what is Battlestate Games trying to stop? Dog tags are souls. Going back on talking about purgatory, what if these dog tags were a way to collect and escape from Tarkov, and Tarkov itself is purgatory? And what if the only way to escape was to kill other people, collect their dog tags, make them suffer endlessly for your sake, your selfless actions, predetermined raids? Going back to what I said earlier about how it almost feels like things are set in place for you. You don't run into anybody, or you get head-eyes in a place where you've never been shot at before. Hell, call me crazy, but what if you're not even playing a multiplayer game? BSG has said that they're struggling to implement an offline mode, but maybe that's because you are playing the offline mode. Maybe there's a darker message to all of this. There's a reason as to why Battlestate Games wants you to believe this is a multiplayer game, but really isn't. Tarkov gathers info on how people in different countries would respond to a Russian invasion. Remember how I said what if this game was actually a single-player game? You know it would be a lot easier to keep track of player statistics and what players are doing at all times? Would be a lot more difficult to be able to do that if there were other players in the same game as you. And USEC invading Russia? What if that was flipped? What if Bear was invading US? What if Battlestate Games actually works with the UN? And that conflict that Nikita was trying to bring light to with his game could be a conflict that could involve other countries soon. You can actually escape Tarkov. Remember how we talked about how Tarkov was actually a purgatory? And how the only way that you could escape was with dog tags, other players' souls? What if that's what Terra Group Labs has created? What if Terra Group Labs was trying to play God and find out what actually happened after death? And they did find exactly what that was. And maybe, just maybe, what we are playing is a visual representation of what they found. Because surely that kind of information could never destroy worlds, countries, and make even the most sanest of men go crazy. Right? Empty factory theory. Now, for this one, if you're at your computer and you have a moment after the video, load up Escape from Tarkov. Go to factory offline. Make sure no AI are in, and just listen. Don't sprint. Don't go to your normal PvP areas. Don't loot anything. Just walk. Just walk around and listen. Listen to the silence. Now, what if I told you that there are no players ever in Factory? What if the AI we've been talking about past couple of entries is actually being trained in Factory? You see, what if Factory wasn't for you? What if the enjoyment of Factory wasn't for you as a player, but as a way for BSG to train and increase the intelligence of their AI for God knows what? What if that's how they train their AI to look more like AI? Because if this is really the intelligence of the AI, they're just mimicking players. And if they're mimicking players, know what players are, couldn't they take that information and give it to the other AI scavs? They simply do the opposite of that, because the opposite of that would be an AI. So you then ask yourself, if this is true, if there are no players in Factory, and the AI are teaching each other how to become smarter, conceal themselves from us, and you have to ask the question to yourself, why? Why do they want to hide from us? And after you think about that one for a moment, you can then ask yourself, how many times have they let you see them? And when you're walking around alone in Factory next time, and you hit that button of no PvE, think to yourself, next time, does that actually not spawn any AI? Or does it let them know that you'd rather not know that they're around every corner that you're about to turn? But don't worry, you won't see them. They've only spent their entire existence learning how to hide from you properly. So that is going to wrap up this video, guys. Jesus. Oh my god, it's 6 in the morning. Honestly, it actually worked really well because as the video started to go on, it started to seem like I got like more spookier and scarier, but in reality, I was actually just getting more sleep deprived. So again, thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And the support honestly has been phenomenal. We almost hit 100 consecutive viewers on our last stream, guys. That's insane. I don't really know what to say other than thank you guys so much. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, guys, thank you so much. And this is my thank you to you guys. I have poured my heart out for this video. This is the hardest I've worked in a very long time on a video. And I hope you guys love it just as much as I loved making it. So again, thank you guys. The sun's coming up. I need to get to bed. But yeah, happy Halloween, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.